Sorry, we got cut off there. Yes, I was directing you to this very simple statement at the top of page 203 that Socrates sort of establishes that he and his friends can agree that death is the separation of soul and body. That is, I think, the starting point of, let's say, Plato's theory of death, as opposed to Epicurus's. So, in a certain respect, the rest of the text, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm repeating myself because my last video got cut off, but the rest of the text, for whatever else it is, and it is a lot of other things, a lot of related questions are necessarily pursued. And there's a lot of really interesting dramatic things going on here having to do with Socrates and his life and his friends and his death. But at the end of the day, the success or the failure of the dialogue rests on whether Socrates or Plato can establish that after this so-called separation of soul and body, that the soul continues an existence of its own, that the soul is eternal or immortal. Soul is the translation of the Greek word psyche, a very difficult word, I find, to sort of really understand what the Greeks meant by that. But if we try to maybe round out what is meant here by soul, could we say mind, consciousness? And then the question becomes whether that part of us, which is so vital to who we are, personhood, whether consciousness and mind does actually continue to have an existence after this separation of soul, of itself from body. For surely the body dies. Surely the body is corrupted and goes out of existence as a living thing and returns to the dust. But what happens to the soul? What happens to mind, consciousness, the person? What Plato has to try to do is to make a plausible case that it continues, that it is not utterly dependent upon body for its existence, which is a deep question in this dialogue. Can mind, soul, life, consciousness have any existence without body? That is the really deep and interesting question that we're going to get into here in this dialogue, and that we have to. So I just want to tell you, as you're reading it, it goes in a lot of different directions. And, well, I mean, but it always sort of comes back to that question. After he dispenses with the question why the philosopher would want to die, he then has to, really get into the question, has to provide some sort of plausible answer to the question, what happens when we die?